everyone, welcome back to Education's Expert. I am Bharti Sharma, your spoken English educator. So today I welcome you all in my next part of tenses series, which is based on past perfect tense. As we have discussed till past continuous tense, so today we'll be starting with past perfect tense. Let's get started. Yes, now let's start it with its definition. So its definition says the past perfect refers to a time earlier than before now. So it refers to what? It refers to a time earlier than before now. It is used to make it clear that one event happened before the another in the past, right? So basically when two events happen at the same time and one event happened before the another in the past, at that time we use past perfect tense. It does not matter if which event mentioned it first, because the tense makes it clear which one happened. Clear? And what is the helping verb that we are going to use in it? That helping verb would be had. I have told you in my past simple video that most simpler, in my opinion, tense that you can remember all the time would always be past simple and past perfect. How? Because in past simple you use only did at the time of negative, interrogative, negative, and every type except the affirmative you use did, right? And did plus v1. And at the time of past perfect you use only one helping verb, that is had. And over here it makes it more simpler, more easier than the simple also. Why? Because you don't need to even care about what is affirmative, negative, interrogative, negative, or double interrogative. In every type of sentences you have to use only and only had. Plus there is another bonus for you, that you don't need to even care about singular subject or plural subject with each and every type of tense sentences, plus each and every type of subjects. You just need to use only and only had. If it is affirmative, then you are using had. If it is negative, then you are using had plus not. If it is interrogative, then again you are using had before the subject. And if it is interrogative negative, then again you are using had subject and not. Plus if it is WH family sentences, then you have to use WH before the all the sentences. So it makes it the most simpler tenses in all the top 12 tenses. Which is the most simpler one? That would be only and only past perfect tense, because you don't need to care, you don't need to remember anything except the one word, that is had. I hope it is clear for you. Now let's directly jump into examples and let's quickly understand what does it says. So examples are these: I had finished the work. Also, I have told you in my present perfect tense video, then whenever we are using perfect tenses, at that time we have to use third form, right? Third form of the main verb. So you need to remember this thing: perfect is equals to third form of the main verb, no matter what the subject, what the tenses belongs to. Either it is present, past, or future, you need to use at the time of perfect, you need to use third form of the verb. That is always will remain same. Plus if you're using any continuous or progressive tense video, at that time also there is one thing common, which is what? Which is first form of the main verb plus ing. So these are the two things that you should remember all the time, because if you get to know this thing and if you get to learn this thing forever, you will never get confused. So basically continuous is equals to v1 plus ing, perfect is equals to v3. These two things that you need to remember. Plus if we are talking about past perfect tense, you need to remember only one helping verb, which is had, right? So I had finished the work, I have finished the work, I had finished the work. Next up we have this: I had finished the work. Sorry, I have used this thing twice in the sentence. Next up we have is she had gone. He had written 3 books. He had written 3 books. She had met him before the party. The plane had left by the time I got to the airport. I had written the email before he apologized. Now in this sentence you can understand this thing with the definition also. When definition said, it is used to make it clear that one event happened before the another in the past. So you can definitely recognize from this sentence, the plane had left by the time I got to the airport, right? And you will get to know the use of this thing also, that when we are using two things at the same time, two actions at the same time, sometimes if the action is in past continuous, then you use past simple tense. And if the sentence is in past perfect tense, then you can use past simple tense with this also, right? So the plane had left, this shows the past perfect tense. By the time I got to the airport, and got shows over here what? Past simple tense. Clear? I had written the email before he apologized. Now again, in this sentence also you can say had written shows the past perfect tense, and he apologized shows the past simple tense. Last but not least, we have is Kate. Kate had wanted to see the movie. So had wanted to see the movie what shows what? It shows the past perfect tense. So I hope all the examples is definitely clear for you. Now let's move forward and understand uses of past perfect tense. All right, now let's directly jump into the past perfect tenses uses. What are the uses that we are going to understand in past perfect? Let's understand it one by one. First up we have is to show that an action happened before something else in the past, right? This is just what I have told you in my previous examples when I was telling you other examples. When you want to show an action happened in the past before something else happened in the past. How? Let's see some examples of it. She stayed up all the night because she had received bad. So again, first up we have used over here is past simple, and then later we have used past perfect, right? She stayed up all the night because she had received bad. Next up we have is they lost many of the games because they had not practiced. Next is Anthony had met Ryan before you introduced him to us at the party. Had met, past perfect, introduced, again past simple. You had studied Italian before you moved to Rome. You had studied, past perfect, and moved is past simple, right? So most of the time when you're using two actions at the same times, or an action happened before something else happened in the past, so at this time mostly we use past perfect with past simple. I hope this is clear for you. Now let's understand another use of it. Next use of it says about to show that action happened before a specific time in the past, right? So when we are talking about any specific time that is given in the sentence, then at the time we use at past perfect. Let's see some examples of it. He had established her company before 2008. Before 2008 shows what? It shows specific time. Next up we have is he had never played football until last week. He had never played, what shows? It shows past perfect. Until last week shows you specific time, right? They had gotten engaged before last year. Before last year again shows you the specific time in the past. I had fallen asleep before 8 o'clock. Again, all of these sentences shows you the specific time in the past. Otherwise, you already got to know what is past perfect tense. Now let's move forward and understand some more uses related to past perfect. All right. Now let's understand another use of past perfect tense, which shows about we use past perfect tense in reported speech, right? When we are using reported speech, then also we use past perfect tense. How? Let's see some examples of. The teacher asked if we had studied for the exam. If you have ever studied in your previous classes, or if you are still studying, and if you are not, if you even now studied, I think while speaking we have definitely used reported speech. Basically reported speech means narration, right? And at the time of narration we generally use past perfect tense, and that's the most common use, right? So the teacher asked if we had studied. Asked, and if we use asked, we already used if with it. The teacher asked if we had studied for the exam. So basically there are particular rules to understand narration, and if you don't know the rules you will never get to know how to use narration at the time of. So you need to know, this is a very important topic as well, but I'm just telling you the crux that at the time of reported speech or narration, you can say we use past perfect tense, right? Next up we have is the usher asked if we had purchased our tickets, right? Next up we have is my neighbor asked if we had seen her dog. The boss had said it would be a long. So all of these sentences represents past perfect tense, and all of these sentences belongs to reported. Clear? Let's move forward and understand another use. It says past perfect tense can also be used to show dissatisfaction with the past. Yes. If you're talking about dissatisfaction in the past, at that time we can use past perfect tense. How? Let's see some examples. We wished we had purchased the winning ticket. Now, basically, this sentence is showing you that I'm wishing, I am not satisfied. I would have satisfied if I would have purchased the tickets. But now I'm dissatisfied. I'm telling you this thing in an indirect manner, right? We wished if we wished we had purchased the winning ticket. Next up we have is I wished I had told the truth. I wished I had told the truth. She wished she had seen her friend. She wished. And last but not least is the boy wished he had asked another question. So in all of these sentences, when you use wish wish itself represents the satisfaction or dissatisfaction. If I'm saying you, if I wish I had bought that, so that means I'm regretting it that I had not bought that, because of which I am dissatisfied right now, and I'm representing it. So you represent dissatisfaction by using the word, right? I hope this is clear for you now. All right, now let's understand last use of past perfect tense, which says it can also be used with the word just. When combined, this makes it clear the event was only a short time prior, right? How? See, if you're using just, you can use past perfect tense. How? She had just left the scene when the ambulance arrived. So basically, we are combining the two sentences by using just, right? When combined, this makes it clear the event was only a short time prior. Short time prior means, yeah, the event was for a short time period only, right? She had just left when the ambulance arrived, right? He had just put the dog on the leash when we got there. So that means the other action is just for a shorter time period, right? And it just happened. Next up we have is the bus had just left when we got to the shop. I had just gone outside when it started to rain. I hope this is last rule is definitely clear for you. Let's understand signal words of it. So these are the signal words: already, just, never, not yet, once, until that day. So these are the signal words, so that you can identify what are the past perfect tenses. Now let's understand some more important points related to past perfect tense. So some more important points. What are the important points that I was talking about? Do not use past perfect tense while you are not expressing some sequence of events. When you want to express some sequence of events, then you can use. But if you are not expressing a sequence of events, then you cannot use past perfect tense. Because in this case, the listener or reader will be wondering what happened. Clear? Next is, in order to make the past perfect tense clear, there is a need for context. In the absence of context, it does not. So whenever you want to use past perfect tense, there should be definitely a context of it, right? Next up we have is, we often use the adverbs like already, still, just, ever, and never with the past perfect tense. You know that, right? So I hope all the important points is definitely clear for you. If you're not, let's directly jump into the example so that you can definitely get clear with all the rules. So what are the examples? I had called the doctor for an appointment, but it was already full. So what is the adverb that we have used over here is already, right? I had called the doctor for an appointment, but it was already full. He had still not reached his home. So over here, we are not expressing any sequence of events. So we have directly just told you, right? He had still not reached his home. He had just received the parcel. I had never met anyone like him before I met Jack. So I hope all the important points is definitely clear for you. Now let's move forward. All right, now let's understand contractions formed with past perfect. So when we use past perfect in speaking, we often contract the subject and the auxiliary verb. This thing I have told you, I think millions of times, right? So whenever we contract the subject and the auxiliary verb. We also do this in informal writing. Clear? So let me tell you the contraction forms, and you have to promise with me that when I'm going to tell you the contraction forms pronunciation, you have to practice with me. I will first tell you the first time, and then the next time you have to practice it. Clear? First up we have is, if I have to pronounce it, this first one, I had. How does it pronounce it? We have pronounced it as I'd, I'd, I'd. I hope first time you have not pronounced it, but from the second and third time you have practiced it. Clear? Next up we have is you had. It becomes you'd. Now you have to practice it with me. You'd, you'd. He had becomes he'd, he'd, he'd. He had becomes shade, shade. It had becomes it'd, did, it'd. We had becomes we'd, we'd. They had becomes they'd, they'd. I hope you have practiced it with me. Now let's move forward and understand it with some examples. I had eaten already. So if I have to contract this and then I have to say this, how will I say? I'd eaten already. I'd eaten already. I'd eaten already. Next step is they'd gone there. They'd gone there. They'd gone there. See, it is so fast, but still you can listen it properly. They'd gone there. They'd gone there. It actually listens that I'm speaking like they had gone there, right? They'd gone there, right? And in negative sentences, we may contract the auxiliary verb and the not the subject and the auxiliary verb. In positive sentences, we contract subject and the auxiliary verb, and in negative sentences, we contract what? We contract auxiliary verb and not. How? I had not becomes hadn't, 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 right? I hadn't finished my meal. I hadn't finished my meal. Next up we have is Anthony hadn't had a day off for months. So this is how you speak, what you have to keep it in mind about the pronunciation. Focus on the pronunciation and you will get master of it. I hope this is clear for you. Now let's understand sentence structure related to past perfect. Let's understand sentence structure for affirmative sentences, or you can say positive sentences. So basically I have distinguished again two structures. How? In past perfect tense, I have told you this is very simple, that you use had. But there is a little trick that again you have to focus upon. At the time of basic, I have not told you this thing, but because you are at an advanced level, now you are ready to understand it. How? See, if you are normally simply using this subject plus had plus third form of the verb and object, that's definitely okay. But if there are two actions, at the same time, and then at that time you have to use first past perfect and then past simple. But how you will use it? Let's understand it. If you are using in a sentence before word, right, before word, then at that time the structure would be something different. But if you're using the sentence afterward, all right, now let's understand the structures. So basically I have distinguished the structures between the two. Yes, I have told you that this is the most simpler form of tenses, which is past perfect, that you have to use only and only one help. But again, there is a little trick. I have not told you this thing in my basic spoken course because now you are ready and now you are prepared and now you are at the advanced level. So because of this, I'm going to tell you this thing in more detail, right? So basically what happens is, when you are using past perfect tense, you have noticed it, usually we use two actions at the same time, right? And when we use two actions at the same time, first we use at the past perfect and the other action, for the later action we use past simple tense, right? And now there is a trick that you have to keep it in mind. If you are using forward, then there will be different structure, and if you are using afterward, then again there would be a different structure. What is the structure that you have to keep it in mind? Let's understand it with first before word. If you are using before word, then you have to remember subject plus had plus third form of the main verb plus object. Till this you have to use first action. Clear? This is the normal simple sentence that we use in basic spoken, right? Subject had V3 and object. Simple. But till here, you are using the first action. And now for the later action, you will use before, after the first object. Subject, again with me, subject had V3, object, object with the first action. Clear? Now, again, you are using next subject. Before the next subject, you have to use the word before. Before plus subject. Now, there, what is the trick? The trick is here. Now, because you have to use past simple tense, and past simple tense always at that time we use at the positive sentences time, we use only and only second form of the main verb. So because of that, we will use V2, right? Before, subject, V2, object. Clear? Maybe at the time of listening, it seems little, you can say, tricky or maybe difficult, but when you get practiced into it, it is the most simple. You will never get confused, right? Now let's talk about after. If you are using after, then at this time, subject, what there is a slight difference, that is the at the time of before, when we are using the later action, at that time we are using past simple. But if you are using the word after, what is the difference? The difference will be that you have to use past simple first and then later the past perfect. That's it. That's the only thing. Clear? I hope the structures is clear for you. If not, let's see some examples of it. After the examples, you will never get any dilemma. Let's start with examples. So these are a lot of examples. Because of this, I have given you a lot of examples. Why? So that there is no such dilemma left in your mind, right? So started with the first one. The judge came to our stall after Jackie had grilled the meat. Understand this first line, first example. I have used word after. Now let's check it out from the structure. Subject over here is what? The judge. And when we use the after one, first we use past simple, later we use past perfect. And with past simple, we always used second form of the main. The judge came to our stall. The judge, subject, came, V2, to our stall, object. Now we have used word after, and because we have used after, now past perfect after this, right? After, subject is Jackie had grilled, V3 plus other words. The judge came to our stall after Jackie had grilled her. I hope it is now clear. Next. Now I'm giving you the example of before one. I had completed my work. See, I have told you, when we are going to use before word in a sentence, at that time first we have to use past perfect and then later we will use past simple. I had completed my work before my father, and if I have used this thing in a past simple tense at that, with the word after, then we have used first past simple and then later past perfect. Okay, let's make it with after, the same sentence with afterward, right? If my father came after I had completed my work. This would be the sentence when you're going to use word what after. Clear? Next up we have is my father bought me a new phone. My father bought me a new phone. And now I'm using word what after, because of which first I have used past simple. My father bought me a new phone after I had ordered online, after I had ordered one online. Now I hope before and after is definitely clear for you. I hope there is no such dilemma left in your mind. Now you can definitely practice. See, now it's totally depend upon you. As much as practice you can do, you can definitely get what does it mean, right? Now if once you will get into practice, then there is no confusion left, then there will never be any confusion left in your mind. Clear? The thief had fled. The thief had fled before the police arrived. Next up, Harry had known about it for a while. I didn't say anything until she had finished talking. Now, in this sentence, first we have used the negative one and later we have used the positive one. So you have to keep in your mind that past at the time of past simple, and when we use at the time of past simple in the negative sentence, we use did not, did plus not, and with that did we have to use first form of the main verb, right? I did not say. I did not say. This is a past simple but for negative. I did not say anything until she had finished talking. Clear? Next up, after she had moved out, I found her note. After she had moved out, I found her note. We had just gotten home. We had just gotten home when we heard the blast outside. So now in this sentence, we have not used when, we have not used after or before. We are using over here when. So you can definitely use apart from word after and before, you can use when also. How? First we have again used the past perfect tense and later we have used past simple tense. We had just gotten home when we heard the blast outside. You had spoken the truth. It's a normal simple sentence. I don't think so there is anything to explain. The train had left before. The train had left before I arrived at the station. By the time he phoned her, she had found someone new. So apart from after and before, you can use after, we can use when, we can use by the time, and there was something else that we have used, that I think it was for a while, about, right? So these are the words that you can again use apart from after and before. Next up we have is it had happened so quickly I didn't know. It did. Now I'm saying it did. Why? Because it's a contraction and we are saying it in informal manner. It had happened so quickly that I didn't notice. Clear? After Sheetal had finished her work, she went to lunch. Now this sentence may get confused you. Why? Because maybe you will say, ma'am, to just when you were explaining the structures, you were saying that we have to use V2 first and later V3. Now you're using V3 first and later. See, that's, you are totally okay, yet you're totally saying correctly, but you again have to notice this thing, that what is the position of after. If I am using after in between the sentence and after that also I have something to say, then obviously I'll use V3 now, but I am using after in the beginning of the sentence. So with after you have to use V3, and with after this I have put it the comma and then I have used the V2. So this is what you keep in mind, right? You need to also see the position. What is the position of after? Not just after, before also, when also, and everything, right? So after Sheetal had finished her work, she went to lunch. I washed the floor when the painter had gone. I washed the floor when the painter had gone. Before I knew it, she had run out of the door. Again, the position over here of before is in front of the sentence. Before I knew it, she had run out of the. Clear? I hope now there is no doubt left inside your mind, and if it's still there, you need to practice. That's the only way that you can clear all your doubts. If you're not going to practice it out, you will never get clear with all the things. You need to practice a lot, you need to understand a lot, and you will get to understand only and only once you started practicing it out. I hope with this you're clear. Now let's move forward and understand negative sentence. All right, now let's understand negative sentence structure. So what is the negative sentence structure? Subject plus had plus not plus MV3 plus object. Apart from this, do keep remember the structures that I have given it in affirmative sentences, after and before. That also we can repeat in the negative. You just have to put not, right? Let's see some examples of. I had not eaten at that restaurant before today. First of all, it is not restaurant, it is restaurant. Restaurant. Let's see some examples of it. First up we have is I had not eaten at that restaurant before today. First of all, let me tell you, it is not restaurant, it is restaurant. 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 It is not restaurant. Clear? So next time, don't say restaurant, it is restaurant. Let's go to that restaurant. Let's visit that restaurant, right? So I had not eaten at that restaurant before today. I, subject, you don't need to care about this subject. You just have to put had with every subject. I had not eaten. Eaten is the third form of the eat. Eat, ate, eat. I had not eaten at that restaurant for today. That means in Hindi, आज से पहले मैंने उस रेस्टोरेंट में खाना कभी भी नहीं खाया था. Next up, Kiran had not ever gone to Kiran had not ever gone to USA. Ever is what? If you remember the some important points that I've told you. In that point, I have told you the adverbs, right? So ever over here is a playing as a adverb. So Kiran had not ever gone to USA. That means in Hindi is Kiran कभी भी USA नहीं गया है. Kiran had not ever gone to you. You had not helped me when I needed you the most. Now I have not used over here after or before. I have used over here is when, and after when I have used past simple tense. Clear? You had not helped me when I needed you. They hadn't eaten anything before they came. Now after and before is clear for you, right? So they hadn't eaten anything before they came here. He had not applied for this job. He had not applied for this job. Tim hadn't been to his friend's house before. We had not paid the rent of our home. That's a simpler one. I hadn't finished my part. India had not won the match. That's sad. I am still in, pain that we have lost. We hadn't ever traveled to Egypt. We hadn't ever traveled to Egypt. Samantha hadn't had time to explain her side of the story, right? Next up we have is my friends hadn't ever gone to France. I had not eaten at that restaurant before today. That's a again repeated sentence. I hadn't done anything yet. I hadn't done anything yet. He hadn't finished his dish before you came. Now again, after and before, same rule. After before you we are using before word. So after this we have used past simple, right? So he hadn't finished his dish before you came. She hadn't done the homework before the teacher asked. Again, same rule. Clear? I hope negative sentences structures is obviously clear for you. Let's move forward and understand interrogative sentences. All right, now let's understand sentence structure for interrogative sentences. This is the sentence structure for interrogative sentences. You have to put had plus subject. Let's understand the sentence structure. Sentence structure would be had plus subject plus MV3 plus object, the words and question mark. Rest of the sentence structures for every sentences you have already known. What you have to keep it in your mind about the after and the before rule, because that doesn't even apply for the affirmative, that applies for every type of sentences. Clear? Let's directly move into the examples. Had the bell rung before I reached. Again, see, after and before word again came into your, right? Had the bell rung before I reached the school. Had you tried the bread from this shop before today? Had Raj had the chance to show what he found? So basically, you must be thinking that we have used two had over here. So both the hads are playing different roles. Let me tell you. One ad over here is a obviously auxiliary verb. The first one, had Raj had the chance. Had the chance means basically, did he get the chance? So is over here the second had is playing as a get, right? So had Raj had the chance to show what he found. Next up, had they practiced the trick before they performed it? Now before, after this before, we have to use second past simple. Next up, Had Rosie tie-dyed up her room before her mother? Tie-dyed means clean, right? Next up, had the student learned about this before the teacher asked? Had Jatin take the spot before we arrived? Before we arrived? Before us simple. Had Princey told the other before she went home? Had the kid brought the clothes back home after, before the rain came? Sorry. Had Aman checked the bread's quality before he presented it to the judge? Past. Had Aditi gone to the doctor before she went? So again and again I'm repeating myself. You need to understand, you need to practice a lot so that you can understand all these structures. And once you will there's only way that you can get the rule of rule of before and after. Once you are going to get into the practice, you will get to know what is the difference between after and the before sentence structure. I hope now this is clear for you. Let's move forward and understand interrogative negative sentence. Let's understand sentence structure for interrogative negative sentences. This is the sentence structure: had, subject, not, we, object, otherwise, and question mark. We have just to put only not after the subject. Clear? So what are the examples? Had she not called you last Sunday? Had she not called you last Sunday? This is the most simpler one. You can refer it to the structure as well. Had plus subject plus not plus MV3. MV3 is over here called. Call, called, called. You, object, and the last Sunday are the words, right? Had she not called you last Sunday? Question mark. Had she not finished the task? Hadn't she won the competition? Hadn't they won the competition? Hadn't over here again is a contraction form. Very good. Hadn't the kid brought the clothes back home before the rain came? Had he not written the letter? Had he not written the letter? Had subject had auxiliary verb he subject, not because negative sentence, written MV3 and the letter. Next up, had I not prepared enough for the exams? Had I not prepared enough for the exams? Next up, had he not opened the door when you knocked? When you knocked. So when you knocked, after this when, we have used past simple. Had she not done a good job? Had she not done a good job? Or you can say, hadn't she done a good job? Hadn't she caught the thief on her own? Or you can say, had she not caught the thief on her? I hope now this is clear for you. Last but not least, we are going to discuss that double interrogative sentence. Let's move into it. All right, now let's understand last but not least, which is sentence structure for WH family sentences. So what is the sentence structure for WH family sentences? The sentence structure for WH family sentences would be, we just have to put WH family before the sentence structure, right? WH family, had, subject, MV3, object, and other words. Clear? This is the sentence structure for WH family. Let's directly get into the examples. Before this, let me tell you, this is the sentence structure for positive sentences, and for negative sentences, you just have to put not after the subject, right? So now let's directly jump into the example. What had you done before she came in? What had you done before she came in? Next up, where had Vijay been before we came back? See, before, just remember this thing, before. After this before, you have to use past simple tense. Clear? Next up, who had you seen after you saw the footage? Who had you seen after you saw the footage? What had Jane done after they hung the bag up? Where had you placed the box after we brought it here? What had the suspense done to the property before the owner returned? All of these sentences are very simple. Again and again, I'm telling you, you have to practice it. And once you started practicing it out, everything will get normal. And you will say, yes, ma'am, you were saying right. Everything is very simple, right? So yeah, again, what had, see what WH family had auxiliary verb, the subsuspect is your subject, done again is your MV3, to the property is your object. In other words, before the owner returned, before again, and the owner returned is your past simple, right? Why had you thrown your sister's necklace after your father gave it to her? After your father gave it to her. Next up we have is, who had Tim told about this password before he locked up? Why had she gone to the station? And where had Alina been yesterday night? Why had the teacher punished you that day? when had you talked to her, whom had you met the other day. All of these sentences are very simple. You just directly can connect to the structures, right? Who had she met before she came to the courtroom, right? So this is how you can create all of these sentences. These are very simple, and again I'm telling you that it's the matter of how much practice you create, right? Just practice these sentences a lot of times, and a lot of times. With this practice, you will get to know all of these sentences that were very, very simple. Create your own sentences, match up with the structures, and you will get to know all of these sentences very clearly. So thank you so much for watching this video till the end, and I'm going to meet you in my next video. Till then, stay connected and be happy.